Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we're going to share scary Skinwalker horror stories. First story. I met a Skinwalker in Blackwood Forest. I've always loved solo camping. The isolation of Blackwood Forest has always offered a perfect escape from the relentless grind of city life. My name is Jake, and solitude is where I find my peace. My job in finance is demanding, and the constant pressure and deadlines leave me yearning for these wilderness retreats. Every few months, I pack up my gear and head into the forest, which has always felt like a second home. Until this trip, I had never experienced anything unusual in those woods. But this time, something felt different from the moment I arrived. The forest seemed darker, more oppressive. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches casting eerie shadows. Despite this, I brushed off the unease and set up camp, determined to enjoy my weekend retreat. By dusk, I had my tent pitched in a small clearing and was gathering wood for the fire. The process was almost meditative, a familiar routine that usually helped ground me. As twilight deepened, the forest came alive with the sounds of nature settling in. The first stars appeared, their distant twinkle stark against the enveloping darkness. The fire crackled to life, its warm glow offering a small measure of comfort. I settled into my chair with a beer, trying to relax and embrace the tranquility. But tonight, the usual sounds of the forest, the chirping crickets, rustling leaves, felt more menacing than soothing. It was as if the forest had a heartbeat, each noise echoing unsettlingly close. The vibrant rustle of leaves seemed to carry a darker undertone, and even the crackle of the fire sounded hollow. I tried to lose myself in a book, but the growing darkness seemed to seep into my thoughts. Every gust of wind and snap of a twig kept me on edge. I checked my watch repeatedly, the minutes dragging as night deepened. The shadows grew longer, creeping up on the edges of my firelight, and the once comforting flicker of the flames began to feel inadequate against the encroaching darkness. As the night wore on, the noises grew stranger and more unnerving. The cricket's chorus faded into silence. The wind died down, and the rustling leaves ceased. The usual nighttime symphony was replaced by a suffocating silence. An oppressive stillness settled over the area, amplifying every creak and groan of the woods. The silence felt heavy, almost like it was pressing in from all sides. Then, a low, guttural growl pierced the darkness. It seemed to vibrate through the ground, resonating deep within my chest. My heart pounded, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I scanned the darkness beyond the firelight, trying to locate the source. "What was that?" I muttered, barely above a whisper. My voice felt strange in the silence, almost like an intruder. I grabbed my flashlight and directed its beam into the darkness. The light fell on something, a shape just beyond the fire's edge. At first, it looked like a deer, partially obscured by shadows. But as I squinted, I saw its eyes. They glowed an unnatural red, piercing through the darkness with a malevolent gleam. A chill crept up my spine. "Hello," I called out, hoping for a rational explanation. The creature remained still. Then, it let out a scream, an unearthly wail that defied explanation. It started as a deep, resonant cry, like someone in immense pain, and then morphed into a high-pitched shriek that echoed through the forest like a banshee's lament. The sound felt like it was tearing through my sanity, growing louder and more distorted the more I struggled to comprehend it. It was as if the scream was feeding off my fear, intensifying with each passing moment. I stumbled back, dropping my flashlight. The beam flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled with my tent's zipper, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Inside the tent, I tried to calm myself, but my heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I grabbed my hunting knife, trying to reassure myself that I was safe. But the forest had other plans. The minutes stretched into hours, and every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig outside made me jump. I tried to stay awake, my eyes darting around the dark interior of the tent, but exhaustion began to take its toll. I dozed off, only to be jolted awake by a sound that made my blood run cold. That same guttural growl, now much closer. My heart raced as I held my breath, straining to listen. Something was moving outside my tent, circling it slowly. The sound of its footsteps was heavy, deliberate. Then I heard a voice, eerily like my own, but twisted and distorted. "Jake, come out and play." I froze, unable to comprehend how it knew my name. The voice continued, repeating my name in a way that was both familiar and horrifyingly wrong. It sounded like someone was mimicking me, but couldn't get it quite right, each repetition more garbled and unsettling than the last. Summoning all my courage, I unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside. The fire had long since burned down to embers, casting eerie shadows on the trees. My flashlight lay where I'd dropped it, its beam flickering weakly. And then I saw it. The creature stood at the edge of the clearing, its form shifting and contorting. One moment, it looked like a deer. The next, it resembled a monstrous version of a human. Its limbs elongated and twisted at unnatural angles, its skin rippling and crawling as if something underneath was trying to escape. Its eyes, still glowing that hellish red, locked onto mine. "Jake, come out." It took a step closer, and I saw the blood. Its mouth and hands were smeared with it, and in its hand, it held something small and dripping. My stomach churned as I realized it was a rabbit, its body torn apart, entrails dangling like grotesque ornaments. I scrambled back, tripping over my gear, my mind racing. Skinwalker. The term surfaced from some long-buried memory of campfire stories. Creatures that mimic human voices, take on the appearance of animals, and wear the skin of their prey. My skin prickled with fear. The creature began to tear at the tent, its claws ripping through the fabric with a horrifying ease. I slashed at it with my knife, feeling the blade connect with something solid. It screamed again, that same inhuman wail that made my ears ring and my blood run cold. I bolted from the tent, running blindly into the forest. Branches whipped at my face and arms as I tore through the underbrush. My lungs burned, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I could hear it behind me, crashing through the trees, getting closer. I stumbled into a clearing and saw an old, abandoned cabin. Desperation fueled my steps as I ran inside, slamming the door behind me. The cabin was dark and musty, the air thick with decay. The silence inside was almost as oppressive as the sounds outside. I could hear the creature scratching at the walls, circling, searching for a way in. The scratching was relentless, a constant reminder of the danger just beyond the walls. I backed into a corner, clutching my knife, every nerve in my body screaming for escape. Hours passed, the scratching and growling outside relentless. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, dawn broke, light filtering through the cracks in the walls. The noises stopped. I waited, holding my breath, until I was sure it was gone. I slowly made my way outside, my body trembling with fatigue and fear. The forest was eerily silent. My camp was a wreck. My tent was shredded, my gear scattered and torn. The fire pit was nothing more than a blackened scar on the ground. The surrounding trees seemed to bear witness to the chaos that had unfolded. I quickly grabbed what was left of my belongings, my movements frantic. The sense of urgency was overpowering. I couldn't get out of those woods fast enough. My steps were hasty, my mind racing as I pushed through the dense underbrush, the feeling of being watched never leaving me. Once I reached the edge of the forest, I didn't stop. I kept moving until the trees were nothing more than a distant line behind me. I didn't dare look back, fearing that the thing might still be out there, lurking just beyond my sight. I don't know what that thing was, but I'll never go back to Blackwood Forest. Sometimes late at night, I still hear that voice in my head, calling my name in that twisted, mocking tone. I wonder if it's out there, waiting for me to make another mistake. The thought is a constant, gnawing dread, a reminder of the darkness that lies hidden in the places we think we know best. It's a fear that has taken root deep within me, an unsettling echo of an encounter I can never fully escape. Second story. I found a disturbing tape that my wife and her ex-husband filmed on their wedding night. My name's Jose, and I, 49M, have been married to Kelly, 42F, for 6 years. We met at Mexico City International Airport in 2014. Both of us were waiting in a restaurant for a late-night long haul to London. The pretty stranger quickly clocked my black epaulets, each bearing 4 yellow stripes, then swiveled in her bar stool to smile at me. It was an unconvincing smile. I remember that. She looked like she'd been crying. And I also remember her asking, "Are you flying somewhere far, far away?" When I answered, Kelly smiled and revealed that she would be one of my passengers. I don't remember much of my response, truth be told, but I quipped about her being in safe hands because I just read Flying for Dummies. And she laughed politely as if it were the first time she'd heard that joke. In all honesty, as scummy as it seems, I wanted to impress her. She captivated me. I still remember every last thing she said, even after all of these years. Oddly, however, I only have fuzzy memories of my own words. My mother used to tease that Kelly had put a spell on me. Anyway, without being prompted, the sullen woman told me her story. That she'd booked an early flight home in the middle of her honeymoon because her husband, Michael, wasn't the person he'd purported to be. He was an abuser, a liar, and he's making me tell lies too, she said. He emptied me. That bizarre and unsettling choice of words would ring in my head for the next decade. And only yesterday, after finding and watching that cursed tape, did I finally understand what Kelly meant. I think 10 years ago, she might have been warning me to stay away from her. I think that had been a glimpse of the real Kelly. But I'm not making sense. Let me explain. Everything could have ended with that conversation. We could have parted ways. I wish we had, but I was compelled to see Kelly again. I know that's awful. It's not a habit of mine, falling for a married woman. I just felt something indescribable. Something I now realize may not have been butterflies at all. I had a week in London before the return flight to Mexico. During those 7 wonderful days, I frequently met up with Kelly at her hotel, said that I had to check on her. She was too frightened to return to her hometown in Cambridge, as she believed that Michael would be waiting for her. And she ignored my pleas to report everything to the police, which, I'll admit, seemed strange even at the time. We quickly formed a bond, and things didn't end when I returned to Mexico. I visited Kelly every time I flew to England. After she moved to Brighton, a month later, I started taking the train to her new apartment. Believe it or not, I once took a short-haul flight from Paris to London just to see her. A year later, when our relationship inevitably became something more, I'd already made the decision. I wanted to move to England to be with her. I'd been training to become an airport technician, and I secured a job at Heathrow in late 2015. By early 2017, Kelly and I had bought a house together. In 2018, we got married. I'm obviously fast-forwarding through the ins and outs of our relationship, but Reddit isn't built for essays, is it? I'm here to tell you what I found yesterday morning whilst tidying a storage cupboard. Kelly's clusterfuck of clutter, as I like to call it, came tumbling out of the open door and washed over my feet. A stark reminder that weekends shouldn't be wasted on chores. If I'd been relaxing on the sofa, I might not have discovered what I discovered. Maybe Kelly would have disposed of her own clutter, and we would have lived a happy 50 years together. But I was the one wading through the puddle of forgotten belongings. And what caught my eye during the tumble was a camcorder surfing atop the junk heap, which spilled out of its bag, landed on my feet. I picked it up and chuckled. I knew Kelly and I were old, but not that old. I had no idea she owned such a relic. And curiosity got the better of me, obviously. Who wouldn't want to check the contents of a spouse's dusty tape locked away for who knows how many decades. When I plug in the device to charge it, an error message displayed on the ancient screen. I thought I'd been thwarted by tape or hardware degradation, but I fixed everything, unfortunately, by cleaning out filth from the tape slot. Then I rewound the recording and pressed the play icon. The white, pixelated text read, October 9th, 2014. For Americans, that's September 10th, 2014. And I quickly realized that was a week before I first met my wife. Everything slotted together horribly when Kelly stepped out of a hotel bathroom in wedding lingerie. I realized what kind of tape I'd found. Don't think less of me for watching. It wasn't like that. Even degenerates, I assume, don't want to watch the person they love share such intimacy with someone else, let alone an abusive ex-husband. And Michael was abusive. Kelly wasn't lying about that, but she'd only ever told me fragments of the story. So, even though I expected a raunchy sex tape, I wasn't watching for that reason. My eyeballs weren't springing from their cartoon sockets. Well, okay, I was watching a video keenly, but fear rendered me wide-eyed. Not lust. I just knew that something was wrong with the hotel room. The only natural thing in the footage was Kelly. And as I watched my wife sprawl across the bedsheets, waiting for her filming husband to join her, I eyed the room's cream-colored walls. I didn't give a rat's rear about the interior design, but something hidden in the paint made me sick. You wouldn't understand unless you'd seen the video for yourself. Then something in my head started to ache sharply, much like a migraine brewing behind my sockets. But it wasn't that. It was a painful urge which prompted each of my squeaking eyes to twist. I looked without even wanting to look at the edge of the screen. Searched for something that was only just beyond both the border of the video and Kelly's vision. I wanted to scream at the younger version of my wife as she lay still, as she watched Michael with caving dimples and a provocative grin. I wanted to scream at her to run, though I didn't know why I wanted to do so. That was the most terrifying thing of all. I didn't fear the obvious horror of watching my wife and her ex make love. I feared something else in the room, something I didn't understand. "Get rid of that camera," Kelly whispered, before wagging her index in a come-hither motion. Michael's heavy breathing was not the breathing of a lustful man. It was the labored breathing of something hungry. Hungry in a way that neither food nor sex could satiate. "We need to preserve this moment," Michael said. Kelly rolled her eyes. "Is that right?" In response, the man stopped breathing, and my wife's face changed. Her sultry smile morphed into not a frown, but downturned lips. Lips hanging open in the same horrified expression that I must have been wearing whilst watching the tape. Michael hacked, as if bringing up a hairball, then promised, "I'll put it down." He placed the device on the dressing table and walked over to the bed, but Kelly did not thank him. She whimpered and recoiled. Not due to Michael leaving the camera recording. I don't even think she'd noticed its red, blinking light. No, my wife was still frightened because she sensed a presence. Not her husband, not the room's seedy atmosphere, not even the claustrophobic nature of the walls. She sensed the same thing that I sensed, though neither of us knew exactly what we sensed. "I'm not in the mood anymore," Kelly whimpered as Michael climbed onto the bed. He hushed her, stroking the backs of his twitching fingers against her trembling cheek. "Don't be like that, darling. It's time to consummate." Then Michael gasped like a punctured tire and shot his head towards the empty corner of the room. He nodded slowly, but neither I nor the recorded version of Kelly saw what he saw. "If I must," he told the empty air. Then came something I still don't know how to explain. The plaster rippled as something behind the wall pressed against it. Try to get out, like a hand forming a shadow puppet. Something about the shape was illusory. It could have been a man, could have been a monster. Its outline rapidly changed from a tall thing with arms and legs to a misshapen blob of indiscernible segments. After less than a second or two of the wall bulging, its plaster flattened again, and the living shape was gone. Kelly screamed in synchronicity with me, but she hadn't even noticed the anomaly. She was staring unblinkingly into her husband's eyes. "What's wrong with your face, Michael?" she cried. What terrified me was that, even when the camera caught his face, I didn't see any supernatural change in Kelly's former husband. Didn't see anything other than a very human man. One with an unkind smile and dead eyes, perhaps, but still a man. However, Kelly saw something. Something I didn't. Still, all of that pales in comparison to what happened next. Michael thrust his hand into Kelly's open mouth, prompting her eyes to open just as widely. Her husband's whole forearm plunged into her jaws, muffling her series of screams. Then my wife wriggled and squirmed as Michael propelled his upper arm down her throat, pushed deeper and deeper until his shoulder met her lips. Another impossibility followed, one that I still don't know how to put into words. Michael pulled his arm out of Kelly's mouth, and when his fingers resurfaced, they were holding something. Not my wife's innards. Not the innards I had expected, at least. There wasn't a speck of blood on the man's hand, but a wet, translucent film. It looked a little like either saliva or lubricant. But, again, that wasn't what horrified me. Michael's fingers were clutching the hair of a human head. A head sitting at the top of Kelly's throat, like some wretched birthing canal. My wife's lips opened unimaginably wide, as did mine. I gawped in incomprehensible horror. She gawped simply to make room for that adult head to emerge, then gawped wider to free a set of shoulders and a torso. I uttered an entirely silent scream, believing that if I were to produce even the tiniest sound, something from within that footage would hear me in the future. But a slight whimper escaped once I'd identified the head. It was Kelly. A clone version of Kelly was climbing out her lips. Some fleshy Russian doll. That younger version of my wife was birthing an exact replica of herself. And the clone was screaming too, for it didn't ask to be born. The original Kelly's skin started to crinkle, crease, and shrivel into something smaller. The clone undressed, shed her former skin, reduced the original Kelly to a silky dress that dropped onto the duvet. Then the clone, the new Kelly, fell into Michael's arms, and she eyed the empty skin suit beside her. She may have been screaming through those open lips, but a white sound was drowning all other noises. A prickly static that dug into my flesh. That maddening racket was accompanied by a gangly shadow moving across the wall of the hotel room's entryway. A shadow with the vague appearance of a man. But the tape cut out before the stranger came into view. Hard on my tongue, I hurriedly thrust the camera back into the bag and tossed it against the back wall of the cupboard. And mere moments later, there came the sound of my wife's car pulling into the driveway. So I tried to compose myself. Tried to forget the hellishness I had just seen on her old wedding tape. I looked out of the window at the driveway, but she wasn't in her car. And when I turned back to the kitchen doorway, I screamed. There Kelly stood, hounding me with blank eyes and tight lips. With a face horribly white, yet no whiter than usual. I realized I was simply seeing her true self. It had only taken me 10 years to open my eyes. How did you come indoors so quietly? I tried to ask, though nothing but a series of hoarse whispers sounded. Jose, Kelly began, before lifting the camera bag she'd inexplicably acquired. We were meant to be decluttering, darling. Why would you want to hold on to this? I tried to answer, but I was startled by my wife's sudden step towards me. A solitary step, followed by a gasp and a jolt, much like her ex-husband in the video. Then Kelly looked towards an unoccupied corner of the kitchen and said, "If I must." Upon hearing that echo of Michael's haunting words, I ran, barged past my wife, who seemed either unprepared or unbothered by my escape. I ran out of the house, leapt into my car, and drove. Drove away from my life. I've been on the road for more than a day, stealing bursts of sleep in service station car parks. It's currently 2 in the morning, and I was just woken by the sound of white noise. Not from playing videotape, but from the world around me. That static drowned everything for one horrendous minute. I didn't want to look out of my driver's window, but there also came that familiar strain behind my eyes. A coded warning from my brain. And when I sat up to look outside, I locked eyes with a large truck parked a couple of spaces to my right. That was when I yelled until my vocal cords gave out. The side of the vehicle rippled in much the same way as the wall of the hotel room. Rippled to form the outline of a man inside the storage compartment. He was pressing against the truck side, trying to push through the metal. The shape quickly lost its definition, then it became nothing at all. All that remained was an abandoned truck in a near-deserted car park. I don't know what to do. Please help me before that thing finds me. Before it pulls something out of me. Third story. If you meet me, please kill me. My friends won't believe me. My family thinks I'm crazy. And if I keep trying to convince them, they're probably just going to lock me up. But I need help, and I think that strangers online are my last hope. So I'm begging. If you meet me, if you see me walking down the street and I say hello, if you meet me in a bar and feel inclined to buy me a drink, or if you match with me on a dating app and make plans, kill me. End it. I don't care how it's done. I'd prefer it to be as painful as possible, but I know that's probably a lot to ask. It's already a lot to ask someone who doesn't know me to commit murder on my behalf. And I'm sorry to put such a burden on you, but I truly can't do this any longer. Let me provide you with some context. I might have gotten ahead of myself, but I came on too strong. Don't leave yet, please. At least let me explain to you what's been going on. Maybe, hopefully, once you hear this, you'll be on my side. Maybe you'll believe me. Hell, maybe you've experienced this too. I can't be the only one who has experienced this. It started 2 months ago at Michigan's. Michigan's is a small bar that my friends and I used to go to every Friday night. They had a karaoke night, and everyone got free nachos with the purchase of a drink. It was a routine we had been sticking to for almost a year now, ever since Melly moved into the apartment complex down the street and found the place. Anyway, it was a Friday night, probably around 10 p.m., because I remember that Jonas had just arrived and he got off his shift at the hospital at 9 o'clock on those days. Melly and I had just performed a tipsy version of Fleetwood Mac's Rhiannon, and we were giggling and stumbling back to our booth when he intercepted our path. He said his name was Tony, short for Antonio. He said he was new in the city and had just moved here from Idaho or Iowa. I don't really remember. He wanted to talk to me. He said I had a nice voice and he enjoyed my performance and he would like to get to know me a bit better. I agreed because he was my type, dark hair, green eyes, stubble on his jawline. He smelled like Tide laundry detergent and something else that reminded me of my childhood friend Istra's house. It felt familiar to me, and so I followed him to a booth near my friend's, and we talked for the entire night. Our first date was dinner and a movie, a classic first date. We watched Hard Ties, which he loved, but I said wasn't my style. We went to this expensive French restaurant after, a small place that was almost an hour away, and we had wine and ate our dinner while a woman sat in the corner of the room and sang La Vie en Rose. It was romantic, he was romantic, it was a great date. The first bad sign didn't feel like a bad sign when it happened. You know what they say about hindsight? It started with him going by his full name instead of Tony. He said he had always gone by Tony because he preferred it. He thought Antonio was a mouthful, that Tony made him sound like a fun, easygoing guy, while Antonio made him sound like the opposite. And then, that day, he changed his mind. You've never gone by Ella or Stell? He asked me one evening as we were walking through a small street fair that the city put on every year. Nope, just Stella. I've always been completely Stella. I replied as I took a sip of my soda. Really? You've never gone by a nickname? Not even as a child. I shook my head no again. I remember this conversation vividly now. I had forgotten about it soon after it happened because it seemed irrelevant at the time. But as soon as I realized what was going on, it popped back into my mind like someone had dug into my subconscious and pulled it out, projecting it onto a big screen right in my face. After that, he decided he wanted to be Antonio. He wanted to be completely Antonio. After that step was done, the rest came quicker and quicker, like an avalanche headed downhill until it spiraled out of control. He changed his hair, dyed it a lighter brown, like mine. His eyes, which I swear to all of the gods were green when I met him, were now dark brown, like mine. He got slimmer, losing his broad shoulders almost overnight. His face got rounder, softer, and less angular. He shrank 3 inches. Then he took my jokes, stole my bits, and started saying things that only I would say. Even my friends would comment on it, albeit in an innocent way. Oh my God, that's such a Stella thing to say. Ah, that's so cute. You guys are becoming like the same person. Ugh. I love when couples start to adapt each other's mannerisms. Except we weren't doing that. He was stealing all of MY jokes. He was taking all of my catchphrases. He would use my references that he didn't even know previously. He stole my style, swapping out his Vans, jeans, and button-up shirts for thrifted boots and band tees. He got glasses even though he didn't need them, and he went vegetarian. The worst part about this, the part that pissed me off the most as this was taking place, was the fact that everyone acted like I was insane. They acted like he had always been like that. He never went by Tony. Stella, what are you talking about? His eyes were never green. I think you're misremembering. Maybe it was the lighting in the bar that night. He's always been the exact same height as you. It's impossible for someone to just shrink. It was such bullshit. It's making me mad all over again to think about it now. Nobody believed me. I tried showing them photos where you could clearly see the differences, and it was like they didn't notice them, like I was the only one who could see the photo as is. I need to calm down. I'm not finished telling you my story, and I worry about you getting bored. I need you to believe me. So, would you believe me when I tell you that about 2 weeks ago, he became me? I mean, he literally became me. He morphed into a clone of me. He goes by my name, he wears my face, and hangs out with my friends. I almost had a heart attack when I saw it the first time. It was like I was looking in a mirror who had taken over my life. My friends acted like nothing was wrong, like he had always looked like that. They didn't think we looked alike at all. They didn't think it was weird that we had the same name. Everything was just a big, fat, stupid coincidence to them. It's so infuriating it almost makes me laugh. So that's where we are now. He, or I don't know it. It can't be human, can it? Whatever it is has become me, and it's ruining my life. He picks up my medications, takes my esthetician appointments, takes my Pilates classes, hangs out with my family, everything. I need you to kill him. Me. Something needs to die. Please. My name is Stella Kobe. I'm 5 feet 5 inches. Short brown hair, curly, collarbone length. Brown eyes, big glasses with thick red frames. I've got a tattoo of a skull on the inside of my right wrist and a 4-inch long scar that runs down the back of my right arm, down my elbow. It's from when I fell off a horse as a child. I'm 156 pounds, and I'm a big fan of rock music, specifically Blondie. I love action movies, and I'm allergic to cinnamon. You might meet me out in public in the produce section of a local supermarket. Maybe on Bumble or Hinge or Grindr. I'm in thrift stores a lot. Maybe watch out for me there. You'll know it's not the real me because I haven't left my apartment in over a week, and I have no plans of doing so. I want that thing gone. I want it gone from this world before I ever step foot outside again. I don't know how it picks its victims, but it's quite charming. Just be careful. You can try to avoid it if you want, but your best bet is to just kill it and put an end to this thing. So please, if you meet it as me, please kill it. Fourth story, Skinwalkers, Truth and Myth. This is very important, so listen carefully. This text describes the current state of affairs of our small village. The air was quiet, peaceful even. The grass green, the trees tall. I felt free, at least freer than I had been. I pause. It's been 4 years since the white men came across the sea, since they tortured and captured our people. There are few left in the village now. Some were killed by the white men. Some were killed by a mysterious sickness we can only assume was wrought by the evil white men. Only they might be capable of such a heinous act. After I finish my translation, I look up to see a group of 8 unimpressed scientists. Number 3 was even starting to slump a little. I thought you said this was important and interesting, said number 5. All I'm hearing is what we already know. The Indians were decimated when the Spanish landed in Florida. My heart sank. Could they not see it? But why then did they write this down? I ask. Number 7 appears taken aback. Excuse me, he asks. I continue. Why would this text be important enough to write down? After all, the Native Americans didn't even record their own gods, much less record them using a concept introduced to them by their oppressors. Number 7 pauses for a second. After a few fleeting seconds, number 1, taking advantage of the sudden silence, rises from her seat. In a commanding, booming voice, she says, "Dr. Thrith provides an interesting point. I call a vote." With that, she turns around, sweeping out the door. The rest of the council soon followed. In reality, I think I know exactly why this was written down. The Spaniards rubbed off on them. They learned a written language, even if they modified a little. But what actually bothered me? I'm not sure actually. And honestly, I think that makes me even more afraid of what secrets I might find on this ancient tablet. I just have a feeling something on the tablet was important, dangerous, unknown. And yeah, the bloodstains probably didn't help. The door opens back up. The 8 council members leave the small chamber known as the voting room. Number 4 remains standing while the others sit. According to our vote, you will be allowed to continue your investigation and translation of Hamamanachi texts and culture. You have discovered many important things about Hamamanachi, and we thank you, but now you have 10 days, Doctor. Meeting adjourned. Bang! The door slams. All the council men and women have left. I must have gone into a trance. 10 days? That's all the time I have to uncover the secrets and decipher an entire village and language. I leave the room as well. I'm going to have to start now. On my way out, I pass many men in black, some with their hands on their guns. These men had accompanied many of the members of the council I had just seen. Most council members are extremely high profile. I exit into a van that was waiting for me outside. As I get in, I don't need to tell them where I'm going. It has been pre-planned days in advance. They're taking me to the airport, which I will fly to Hamamanachi, the place I will spend the next 10 days researching. Luckily for me, the plane ride over was extremely smooth. Upon landing, I get straight to work. I pored over everything I already knew. The village was discovered 2 months ago by some free hikers. They managed to recognize the remains of Native American civilization in the area. They immediately reported it to local officials, who reported it to the Smithsonian. They sent me down to investigate the ruins. By the time I had arrived, the houses were torn all over the place. After some investigating, it was determined that a large animal, such as a bear, could have done this type of damage. Likely, it had contracted rabies and attacked the villagers. But I don't know, something feels off. The slash shelters had anywhere between 1 and 5 tiers. Why would a bear want to attack the tent multiple times? Almost like it was desperate, which it shouldn't be. The woods here are rich in life. I'm probably just digging too deep into it. And yeah, many of the objects and houses had some bloodstains on them. Either way, the investigation really picked up 2 days ago when we discovered scripts, likely written by the natives that lived here. Usually, Indians wouldn't write things they couldn't, but the clue was in the language itself. The language was a mixture of Spanish and a few drawings that resembled the environment around them. And that language also revealed something else shocking too. This village wasn't purely Indian. Guessing off the language, it's likely that the villagers were offspring of the Spanish and the captured Native Americans. They must have escaped their Spanish captors and fled into the woods, where they started their own village. The terrain around the village is incredibly interesting as well. There's no surface water for miles around, but what they did have was an open cave system. Last week we mapped the system using echolocation. Turns out the cave is extremely open, with tunnels spreading for miles. Who knows what's down there? We will in under 9 days. Just as I arrive, another vehicle shows up, another black government-owned van, but this one had a trailer attached. The spelunkers. They were hired to examine the cave system under the village. I walk up to meet them. One of them, the leader I assume, notices and approaches me. We shake hands. "Dr. Thrith," he asks, "the one and only." I respond. With a quick introduction, he introduces himself and his 3 accomplices, Greg, himself, Fred, Scott, and Kevin. They apparently specialize in open cave safety inspections. Today, however, they will be doing open cave exploration too. But that can wait for tomorrow. Instead of exploring huge cave systems, we're going to eat dinner. Even though the day felt short, the sun was already falling under the horizon, swallowed by the mountains in the distance. Dry leaves and sticks crunch under my feet as I traverse the rough, uneven ground. Within minutes, we reached the tent set up by Christina, our survival expert, who thankfully managed to set up the entire camp by herself in 2 days. If it was me, I'd take 2 days to learn what a tent is. It's like she'd been preparing for this her whole life, almost. For dinner, she made a delicious potato soup. After dinner, I naturally didn't go to sleep after that. Instead, I did one of my assigned jobs, translation. As I sit down at my desk, I know what's about to happen, the last page of the recordings of Hamanachi. I begin reading. I have ordered my citizens to evacuate, but I'm not sure how many will leave. Some have lived here their whole lives and are not likely to leave this place. I enlarge slash is present on the paper at this point. It then continues. I am sorry, I must leave. How cryptic. But that will be another problem for another me. Day 1 that night. My sleep was dreamless. Some say that dreamless sleep is a sign of an unhealthy mind. Some say it's a sign of an unhealthy body. Particularly spiritual folk claim it is a herald of doom to come. But one thing is for certain. It was very unsettling. I woke up in a cold sweat. Usually I have ridiculous lucid dreams. Human-sized cats surfing, talking wolves at the dinner table, and so on. But tonight I had nothing. Good morning, doctor, Christina says as I walk into the tent. While serving breakfast, she goes on, the spelunkers came out of their tent around 3:25 to eat breakfast and started exploring that cave. I replied between bites, yeah, they are apparently on a tight schedule. I don't think they expected big cave to really mean big cave. After my late breakfast at 11, I set off to the cave entrance. After a while of walking, I saw it, the cliff face wide open. Inside the cavern is a single wide tunnel. This tunnel goes on for hundreds of feet in many directions, with many other equally large tunnels splitting off from it the entire length of the tunnel. Of course, I've never actually entered the caves myself. Our radar scans told us that, but unfortunately, the scans aren't sensitive enough to show us what the cave walls look like. None of the crew present really wanted to go into the cave. For one, caves are often extremely muddy. For two, something about the cave felt unnatural. Like the cave itself was made to be a death trap. I entered the cave for the first time. The air was damp and thick. It smelled somewhere between a corpse and a pottery class. Small lamp lights were set up all the way down the cave. Following the lights eventually, I finally reached the spelunkers. Dr. Whitney was with them. Dr. Whitney is our resident geologist. She may look and sound like a dumb blonde stereotype, but don't be fooled. She studied for 2 years. She really jumped at the chance to come here. She walks up to me looking really excited. I haven't seen caves like this since I was in school. This tunnel was dug. Startled, I reply, what? Oh, dash, look at these markings, she continues, rushing to a cave wall, shining her flashlight on it, running her hand across the wall. These marks are faint, probably from water erosion, but it is definitely evident of excavation. I respond if to get her off my back more than anything else. Interesting. Moving on, I walk up to the caving crew as they begin excavating a wall that looks different. This one wasn't smooth like the other walls, but gravely, almost like a cave-in was blocking the way forward. As I walked up, he turned toward me. Hey, Doc, any idea what this says? He ushers me over toward a rock embedded into a wall of the cave. Wait, no, a tablet. I start the translation process as the team continues excavating. Luckily, it wasn't very difficult. The language was basically just an extremely stylized version of Spanish. The only real difference, really, is that every letter is warped to look like a creature, a mix of language and art. The only real difficult thing is that each time something is written in the language, it's written a different way. One letter may resemble a bear. The same letter may be a badger. Here lies the remaining skinwalkers. The disease will destroy everything. The Spelunker team leader looks up seemingly unimpressed. Nice prophecy. Want to see what's behind this wall they don't want us to find. Really? I retort. Seems like they didn't want us to find Rab. Stop him now. I yell, but it was too late. The walls come crumbling down. Get out. I yell. Evacuate immediately. The evacuation was almost like a three-step process. First came the confusion. The entire chamber pauses, a calm before the storm. Then the chaos. Everyone begins running. Some even began screaming. All the equipment was left where they were. Then, after the entire cavern was evacuated, came the final stage, the questions. So, why did we leave all the equipment? I didn't even look back to see who asked. The tablet says they trapped the disease in that cavern. If that's true, then that means that chamber is likely contaminated with whatever killed the villagers. We can't be sure what the disease is. My best guess is rabies, and if that chamber is filled with rabies, I don't want anyone getting close to the place. Get Richard over here, he's our disease expert, right? Suddenly, the sun shifts in the sky, the world darkens, the ground rises to meet my face. When I woke up, it must have been late, the sun was already approaching the horizon. Finally awake, standing just above me was him, Dr. Will. 2 hours, he said. He must have seen the confused look on my face, because he elaborates, how long you were out for? Sitting up, I realized that everyone else was beginning to rise as well. Something else I noticed, a small crate. What's in the box? Opening the box, he takes out a pristine white radiation suit. Can never be too careful. Christina insisted that I have these taken here when she learned about the caves. Taking the radiation suit, I turn around. We need to get back into those caves to figure out what we're dealing with. Is it empty? The chamber was entirely empty. Sure, there was a shallow lake in the middle of the chamber, but there was nothing else in the chamber. No vegetation, no cave fish, no cave anything. And while it may seem contradictory, the most worrying part was that there weren't any bodies. Not even skeletons. The tablet specified remaining skinwalkers. I assumed they meant infected individuals, but now, I'm not too sure. What do they trap here? I turn around. Let's go. It's late, and there is nothing here for us right now. But Dr. Will says, this place has remained untouched for literal centuries. Are you sure we should just dash? We can wait till tomorrow. I snap. The room goes silent. After my ears start ringing, I begin to crack. Listen, it's been a strange day, and this room is starting to chill me. Through the corridor caves we traveled, but the chilling feeling only got worse and worse until we were outside. The snow starts falling. Not good. I start speeding up from a walk to a jog. Until, Doc, why'd we stop? I think someone is dead. Something was lying there dead. It was black with frostbite. It was just curled up in the middle of the path, a dark blotch amidst a sea of blinding white. What is it? Almost like the voices had activated the creature, it slowly unfurled its legs, using the thin, malnourished limbs to raise itself off the ground. It was humanoid in appearance, but no one could mistake it to be human. It was black, with malnourished limbs and skin clinging to bone in its abdomen. Its fingers ended in long claws, and its head was looking in the wrong direction. It was 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Slowly, it turns its head. Only one thing, its body didn't move with it. Its face was skeletal, decrepit, and as it turned toward us, I could feel my skin warm while the air around us freezes, hypothermia. The world falls out of focus as the creature dissolves in the cold wind. Day 7, waking up on the morning of the 60th day of the investigation, a couple things occurred to me. One was that I was knocked out twice in the same day, and 2, that I somehow knew I was out for 6 days. Then I realized where I was. I was in the Spelunker's van. The van had been converted into a sort of infirmary. In the back were the beds. 3 were strapped to both walls, with 3 more laying across the floor. Everyone seemed to be there. Everyone except Christina. Did she do all of this? She was the only one who didn't go into the cave, and she did convince Dr. Will to bring those full exclusion suits. The cave, the suits, the realization hit me dead on. That thing, the zombie spirit apparition, was it real? Looking over to the front of the van, there appeared to be a load of assorted first aid items neatly placed across the floor of the van. The windows were also completely blacked out. Groggily, the others began to rise, all looking just as confused as I was. After a brief recap, the group confirms that, yes, the thing that attacked us wasn't imagined. After a quick vote, 5 were in favor of leaving, while 3, including myself, voted to stay put. Exiting the vehicle, the air was filled with quiet murmurs. The area surrounding the van had been made into a temporary fort using all the various tents and some extra materials that I hadn't seen previously. The surrounding forest was a cold, almost lifeless husk of what it had been before. The trees were leafless. The ground was covered in pristine, white snow. No animals moved in the trees, but we knew in some primal, instinctive part of our brains that there was something out there and that it could end us very easily, and worse, it wanted to. Dredging out into the forest, the entire group must have walked for 15 minutes before Drive Whitney stops. "Did you hear that?" she asked. The group stops in its tracks. The sounds of the forest, natural and unnatural, are all that can be heard in the air. The wind in the trees, the chirping of the few birds who dare remain, the soft crunch of snow underfoot. I turn around, quicker than I'd ever turned before. What I saw terrified me. Just behind Dr. Whitney, almost touching her, was the thing, standing silently, with its terrible face looking directly away from me, while its body was ready, poised to attack. Thinking back to the moment, only one thing of the situation truly stood out to me: the fear on her face. Up until this point, she hadn't frowned once. In fact, it was almost uncanny sometimes how much she smiled. But now, all there was fear. "Run. Now!" I yell. This time, no one stopped to question me. Even while running, the forest was nearly silent. No creature noises, no monsters that we could hear, and no screaming. At least, no one was screaming, not until it came back. Almost 10 minutes later, while resting near a newly frozen creek, they returned. It started with my heartbeat. My heartbeat, roaring in my ears, louder than anything else. Correction, almost everything else. Suddenly, a scream echoes through the forest. It must have found us. But the thing that had grabbed Fred was more terrifying than it was before. It was almost 7 feet tall, but its hands and its head had something familiar: 2 wide blue eyes and a single strand of yellow-white hair. It wasn't the original one. Another scream sounds from behind me. The group scatters, running in almost every direction. All except one, Dr. Will, who had stayed behind, frozen with fear, or perhaps disbelief. Maybe both. What'd I do next? The heroic thing and arm myself? The smart thing and go back to the camp turn fort? No, I fled. I tried to hide. But clearly it must not have been very effective, because at sundown that evening, someone found me. They ate at breakfast the next morning. It actually came as a great surprise when out of nowhere, someone new appeared. After Christina found me last night, I left to go to bed early, or at least tried to. But waking up in the morning, I saw someone who I'd never expected to see here. Tamaya Northwest, expert in Native American lore and professor, otherwise known to you as Number One. The person who called for me to have more time exploring these cursed ruins. One long explanation later, it turns out that the both of them have relations to this very village. And according to them, this place was abandoned after the monsters in those caves were trapped there by a small group of villagers, sealing the cave from the inside with all of the creatures in there. The few survivors were forced to move because the monsters scared off all of the wildlife, and their water source was sealed. They traveled for years. No tribe accepted them, believing their presence would bring the beast to them. But eventually, they met with a French expedition. They were able to travel with them for much of their trip before breaking off, eventually settling with the Navajo tribe. Their tails change, slowly form from the disease that wiped out the settlement in these woods to stories of corrupted witches, changing shape into whatever form suits them. And those tales of monsters in the woods? They almost disappeared entirely. But when Tamaya had learned of this place, she had started researching, and she uncovered the original story of this place and contacted her cousin. Who? Christina. Unfortunately, the records of how they killed the things have been all destroyed. All except for one clue. The color brown. We haven't been able to figure out what the color is meant to signify, but it did come with this text. Tamaya unfolds the crinkled picture of an old, dusty script, revealing text written in the old Hamamanachi language. After 2 minutes of translation, the text is revealed. Beast's Bane. The words echoed through the forest, almost like the forest wanted us to know it was important. That brown color, it looks almost familiar. Christina started. It can't be the trees. It doesn't make sense for forest creatures to be weak to the trees. Maybe fire? I asked. The paper may be degraded. That could have been orange, like fire. It's worth a shot, said Tamaya. Just then, the ground started to shake violently. Earthquake? Yelled Tamaya. No, it can't be. We're hundreds of miles away from the nearest fault line. I yell back. Christina joins in. Well, I don't think this area was marked for zombie risk either. Get to the campfire. We all quickly run to the campfire. The fire starts shaking. Log starts rolling off the fire, surrounded by dry leaves. And then, nothing. The quake stopped, and the world returned to the eerie stillness and anticipation it had held before. Then the van disappeared. Suddenly, I remembered. Something. Look at these markings, she had said. These marks are faint, probably from water erosion, but it is definitely evident from excavation. They're below us. I yell. Just then something rises from where the van used to be. Not something. It was them. The infected. First was one I hadn't seen before. This one was smaller. It was 4-legged, and it looked almost dog-like with a rotted snout. Then came the white-haired one. Then the one that destroyed our lives. Then more came. One that looked oddly human. One that was on fire. Thinking quickly, Christina had thrown a flaming stick from the fire into the crowd of zombie-like creatures slowly making their way to us. The fire spread quickly, engulfing every creature in flame, all the way back to the hole, and to the van. The fire kept burning, that is, until it wasn't. The fire suddenly goes out with a gust of wind. If fire hadn't worked, what would? Boom! The van explodes, causing one of the things to go flying into the trees on the other side of the hole they dug into the camp. It might have been funny if they weren't so dangerous. But now, no place is safe anymore. That being said, there was now only one place I could think of to go. Day 9, that night, we slept in the trees. It took much longer than I would like to admit to find the cave. In the 7 days I'd been asleep, the beasts had managed to remove all of the trail markers and paths we had set up, including the lights in the cave. So finding the cave, or burrow more like, and navigating it had been unnecessarily difficult, even though we'd already been here over 2 months. I breathed a massive sigh of relief as the cave that reminded me too much of a mouth came into view. We passed into the cave, barely talking throughout the journey. For last night, we had decided only to talk when we needed to. I had to bite my tongue to stop myself from speaking when we found the place that served as the plague's prison. I never in a million years wanted to see this place again. This is where we had to make our stand. The cave rumbled. They were starting to close in. I had to think. I had to. Brown. What about that color could stop these things? Why did it look familiar? Turning around, I look into the cave. We had to figure this out quickly. If we don't, when the team comes to check on the operation, this infection is going to be much worse. This cave had somehow trapped them before. How could it do that when these guys can dig so quickly? They dug out these tunnels. How did a small cave contain them? And more importantly, could they do it again? It had been hours. The shaking had stopped for who knows how long, and that could only mean one thing. They were inside. We are starving, limited battery in our flashlights, and surrounded by creatures that aren't even in the nightmares of the human race. This cave had kept them contained for years. What made this cave so different? Is the wall shining? The words caught me off guard. I hadn't actually heard anyone speak since last night. But Tamaya was right. The walls appear to be shining with a very interesting color. Are the walls here made of copper? I ask. Christina responds, I don't know, you're the scientist. The tablet marking the entrance of the chamber clatters to the floor. Walking over to examine it, I had a feeling that the beast Bane was really hiding under our noses this entire time. This is what they're after. My voice echoes through the cave. This is what kills them. It's copper. They've been after the copper this entire time. That's why I was the one who survived. I hadn't had any electronics on me when they found us in the woods. The cavers had their backpacks full of equipment. The others had their phones. I explained. But why did it take so long for them to get to the site then? Someone asked. We don't know how far their territory expands, do we? Maybe they got to a campsite or sites with more copper than there was in the van. He's right, said Tamaya. Copper being their weakness is the only reason that they could have been trapped here for 3 centuries. Grab some rocks from the walls. We stop them here, or die trying. Within hours, the unlikely team had turned from prisoners into a militia, armed only with a wide array of primal copper spears. They were more like long, sharp stones. By what we assumed to be nightfall, the creatures still hadn't made a move. Then by what we assumed to be midnight, we made a decision and a plan to escape the tunnels. We left our devices in the cave, carrying only our spears, and moved down the tunnels. Multiple new tunnels had appeared since our departure, each one likely dug by the infected legion. By the time we were at the end of the cave, it was midnight exactly, and a full moon lit up the sky. But even as we rose to the surface, we could feel their presence. Emerging at the top, the entrance was surrounded by a wide ring of infected. There must have been 30 individuals, a far cry from the 9 people who discovered the cave. Upon seeing us, the original one, the one in the middle made a terrible screeching sound. And by terrible sound, it was barely recognizable as human, if the thing ever was human to begin with. It was dry, like it hadn't touched water for millennia, but it also sounded like chalk scraping on a whiteboard. In seconds, the group was upon us, the only thing keeping them back, the spears we were pointing at them. Just according to plan, we back up into the cave. As suspected, the lesser versions of the creature were following us. At about 3 a.m., they were right where we wanted them. Make a run for it. We bowled down the hall, just barely ahead of the creatures as they chased us. Then, just as they were about to get us, we were there. The water chamber, gilded with copper. The first 3 creatures screamed in pain as they entered the room. They tried backing up as their hands melt into the floor, but the other 26 creatures in there with us were also moving too. By the time they had stopped, only 10 of the creatures remained. They weren't there for long, though. In seconds, we used our spears to destroy the remaining creatures. And then there was one. Crack! Hours later, we would have reached the entrance, or we would have, if not for the fact it had been closed off. The original must have blocked the entrance while we killed its underlings. But luckily, we weren't actually going there. We were already up. We took one of the many connecting tunnels dug by the Legion, leaving IT defenseless when it attacked us for our copper spears. To think how quickly the tides turned. One day, we were only alive because it thought we were funny, and the next day, we killed it with sharp rocks. And so, as the sun rose, the nightmare was over. How long had it been since I ate? I was hungry. Very hungry. I'm gonna go eat a cheeseburger now. Goodbye. 5th story. A skinwalker was at my window last night. So, I live in an area of the United States that's well known for being in the path of the skinwalker. And this has led to several small encounters, but nothing has ever been concrete enough for me to actually attribute it to a skinwalker. Until last night. I arrived home from work pretty late, around 11 p.m. As I exited my car and walked towards my house, I felt like someone was watching me. So I hurried in and slammed the door behind me. The feeling soon disappeared as I made myself a late dinner and prepared for bed. A slight breeze from my open window that was right next to my bed crept in as I slipped into bed. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my social media apps as I waited for sleep to take me. Suddenly, a whistle from outside broke my concentration. I turned off my phone and listened as it continued. I live in a small town, in the center of it no less, so I'm used to people walking around in the daytime. However, there's no streetlights, so by the time it gets dark, everyone's inside. Something about the distant whistling disturbed me, so I got up and shut the window. That incident soon faded into the back of my mind as I continued to scroll on my phone. Eventually, I fell asleep, but that was just the beginning. I dreamed that I was in an apartment with my sister. I was talking with her when she suddenly became very scared. "Oh God, it's here," she said with clenched teeth, pointing behind me. I turned to see a shadowy figure manifest before my very eyes. It was entirely black, except its eyes, which were a crimson red. It glared at the two of us before lunging in our direction. I woke up, my heart racing. It felt like the figure was still in the room with me. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. They panned across the room, dreading what would happen if I actually saw the figure. To my relief, I didn't see anything. My eyes looked at the alarm clock on my desk, and my heart dropped. It was exactly 3 a.m. I covered myself with my blanket, telling myself it was just a dream. I tried to fall back asleep, but every time I almost did, I shot back awake. It felt like something was right next to me. My eyes widened in fear as I realized I could hear a slight tapping on my window. I pulled my blanket tighter over me as it continued. My heart raced as it seemed like another thing joined the tapping. Multiple fingers slammed against my window, the rapid tapping escalating. I could do nothing but cower as muffled whispers starting coming from the other side of my wall. This continued for exactly 1 hour until 4 a.m. Once my clock hit that hour, everything ceased immediately. I stayed awake for 10 more minutes before sleep overtook me. This morning, I woke up with the memories of that hour still etched into my mind. Before sitting down to write this post, I decided to go look outside my window. A plethora of various footprints were etched into the dirt. I found a small bone neatly placed on my windowsill as well. I've placed several protective crystals at the base of my window, and I plan on picking up some smudge sticks today to cleanse the area. I hope this is enough to keep these creatures at bay, but I know when night comes, they will too. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Till the end, subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.